Hello everybody. Good morning. How are you today? Hello, my name is Noe. If you haven't yet know me, I'm gonna now share my screen and start the webinar. Thank you for coming. Uh, let's do it now. Screen number two. Good. And well, today we have an interesting webinar. Let me show you Business Central. Today we're gonna pay customers, vendors, process, okay, collection, AP. Okay, why we do in Business Central in this webinar with customers and vendors? It should be AP and AR, right? Let me start working with the vendors. So we do purchases, we do payments later for these people or these companies, where we need to understand what we are and how much we are paying, why and when to pay, and so forth, right? So this is a basic process that all the companies do all the time. And where we have a vendor, right? We need to pay attention at the vendor number, right? Because normally we pay by understanding which vendor, right, currently has what we call open entries, right? Where imagine, okay, to start understanding Business Central from scratch and review all the information. This is our vendor card. I have a beautiful picture of the vendor. I don't use it for implementations, but well, for the demo, it's there with the general information. Very important, we have an email address, right? Then to have communications as well for every time or at the same time with customers, right? To have communications when we need to send a statement, maybe for the month, which payments we have done. And the idea is that this is a balance, okay? Every time we purchase, then we are going to generate this balance that will contain more and more transactions. Like in this case, well, we have some invoices, okay? The invoice is generated after we purchase. So they have some specific amounts. Let's do some example because I want to pay one of these and generate one purchase invoice for the first time, okay? Then this is Fabricam, my vendor, and then Crystal York is my contact. So we save the contacts because we have a CRM module where your Outlook contacts will be synchronized with Business Central. So we know if you receive an email of these people, this might be referring to our Business Central processes. So here, let's just generate, for instance, a purchase order. And let me tell you what information we are going to follow, financially speaking, to be paid, right? So everything comes down to specific fields. Let me tell you this. The purchase order is the agreement that I will be doing with a vendor, with the same vendor, of course, to then generate a transaction that I'm going to do now, not related specifically to AP to always purchase, but maybe most of the time you as well might be creating invoices. So the first time I do a purchase order, I'm gonna get my vendor data recalled from the actual vendor card that I showed you. Here is my address, the contact number, which is basically a person. Let me just show you, Crystal York. Okay, this is CRM, we're working behind the scenes, so we have the contact information. And then once we get that, I'm gonna input just some products that I will be purchasing, or this could be expenses or, well, fixed assets, you know, so we can purchase multiple entities. But I'm just going to, let's say, purchase a 10 Paris chairs, okay? Paris is just the model, I believe, good. 10 units, that will be a total of 1,500. So check this out. This is what we generate normally. Behind the scene purchasing process has have dozens of different steps, right? They negotiate the cost, they check the taxes, a lot of stuff, which will be impacting us. Plus, this environment or Business Central for us in this way, we might use different currencies. Good. So it will be important when we use them, we can create all these additional currencies that we are going to use while we do this type of transactions, and we pay also using currencies. But it's important for us that we update the exchange rate. Just to mention, we have an exchange rate that we can just apply in real time if we connect through an exchange rate services, which connect to internet. This is free. We can get the immediate exchange rate for the date and for the moment. Well, I'm doing all these documents, right? When I do these documents, sorry for that. Good. So this is the only thing that I want to show about purchasing for now, because I want to focus on the other steps where we pay. But the idea here, uh, I'm gonna need an invoice number. So let's say that it will be the demo invoice, right? 000 1, right? The invoice number 1. Good. So the idea now, I will then send it to the vendor. You might have approval workflows. We have a lot of functionality behind the scene. Now, I want to just post this invoice, meaning that I will be just registering. It says that I need an approval. Let me see if I can get it. I'm an administrator, so I don't have issues with these approvals, okay? So I have then sent it, but since I'm an administrator, I have approved myself. Nice, good. So we have moved from the what we call, well, the operational process, inputting information, right? For whatever we want to acquire from our vendors. We are acquiring, purchasing. And well, just going to complete this to generate. I'll see. Let me see. Good. Then I'm going to then just post this invoice, right? And then I'm gonna be able to pay. Then all our vendors and customers as well will get for us, when we understand that simple step, we need to follow additional rules. So our vendors, I'm just going to look for the invoicing tab very fast to move to the interesting part. But anyway, this is very critical for our process anyway. We have what we call the payment terms code. Since the payment terms are currently to pay these invoices on the current month, correct? Well, the idea is that I will be just selecting, by the way, all these different type of options. So if you want the vendor to pay in 60 days, for you to pay to the vendor in 60 days, select it. Cash on delivery, and well, all of these options are there. And well, I have PayPal. Well, it's a new way if you don't want to use the traditional credit, a debit card, right? We optionally have PayPal integration. So if you have an account, use it, right? We can integrate that for you. And if you receive payments this way, we can just update Business Central automatically. It's basically an integration. But the payment method as well would be, for instance, sometimes a bank transfer. So we would need as well the bank information and so forth, right? If that's the way we're gonna pay, or cash, or well, different type of payment method that we can use. And for AP, we might work on the priority. This priority field, I don't want to be boring. I want to show now some payments, but this is previous configurations that you can use. What the priority does, and we are going to see that in a second. Well, we do a journal to pay, and we might have dozens of invoices, just like this one that I have shown you just for the webinar. What is an invoice? It came from a purchase. It generated an amount that I need to pay, but some vendors might be more important than others, right? Because we purchase more, they give us good prices and so forth. So we need to treat him properly, so to speak. So this will be priority 1. What it does when we do a payment, we have a function that could review our priority number 1 vendors to pay their invoices when they are due, right? First. And that could be completely paid. So basically that's it. So if then we can rearrange this to be priority 2 or priority 3, we can change it. The idea is that the priority 1 will get more critical for Business Central, right? It's going to be more important. So Business Central is going to suggest you, first pay your vendors number 1. All those invoices that you haven't paid and are overdue from this type of vendors should be paid first, and you will receive suggestion. Remember that Business Central can suggest you what to pay. So that's exactly part of what we're going to see there. And then let me check the customers, right? We as well are learning a customer. We sell to our customers, of course. And then as well, we receive payments. But in this case, well, if I just take a look at the balance, well, this customer owes me now that money, okay? And you can as well drill down to verify which transactions are corresponding to the actual allocated amount as balance, okay? So yes, we have two documents. One is overdue. When it's red for you, when you see it, well, this way is because it is already overdue. And well, you can check as well additional information for these invoices. What is the original amount, right? As well, what is the remaining amount that we still need to pay? Here it is, right? So in this moment, that would be the idea. You get all the information about the invoices, the document number, and look at this. This should have been paid on April, right? In April, I should have paid this 324, and that's why I'm showing this information like this. And now that we are checking, the idea is not to do it vendor by vendor, okay? We need to have a previous source peak analysis when we could go to there and verify the aging information, which is basically going to specify, for instance, I was checking a purchase order. I want to check all those debts that I have. I don't want to see it customer by customer. I want to see we have one, for instance, for purchasing, all right? For purchasing, vendors and customers have this same logic. We need to follow up when our invoices need to be paid, okay? And now the idea is that this report is going to tell me all the detail by purchase order. In this case, I'm analyzing purchase orders, but actually I'm checking invoices, okay? I don't care if I purchase an item or anything else. And this report, it's quite large, by the way, is checking all those transactions, in this case, purchases, because I require this, right? Well, all the items that you purchase and by purchase order number. So we get the information if you need it, okay, of the document number. In this case, I purchase in the purchase order 106001, one Athens desk, right? Here is my item through this order and the total. And when it should be paid according to the buckets, okay? Remember that this column represents, well, the aging of our documents. If today we print the document in August, well, in the previous past months, well, this is August, then in the previous month, July and June, okay, number 6. So we separate in each column by period, well, the aging procedure to see all these amounts, how old are they. So apparently I have some entries that are even before June, okay? Otherwise, I could see some figures of this here. So this is one way, okay? If you, well, we detail, and I'm very, very, let me just print another report now for customers that is not that detailed to give you the idea of what is this, right? So we might get then an aging customer. Let me see which report. I'm show now. H accounts receivable. This is a report I was looking for. Okay. The idea of our report is that we are going to select, well, when is the age as of date, okay? After you post it, well, days are gonna go when we continue week by week, but until when you want to actually run this report. So let's say that it will be today, okay? August 24. And then the transaction date, or only check due dates, only invoices that are already due. Then how long or what would be the bucket of each of your columns? So I stated 30 days. Okay, I want to see first all the invoices that I never paid from the last month, and then so forth from in this case, July, then for June, then for May, and so forth. Okay, you can as well bring the detail for this. Let's take a look. Okay, just a few of them. But here's my H accounts receivable report. You need to run it. And this is simplified version. So I have one customer, Adatum Corporation, two invoices, 37 and 38. And then when the balance was due. So it has more than 90 days that this customer hasn't paid. What is wrong with this? Well, as well, I have a credit limit. So this is the maximum amount, 5,000 of the debt that this customer, so to speak, sorry, can, this is the maximum amount to this customer that I will allow to have on credit, 5,000 at most. And then we have the composition. In this current month, not debts to pay, but previously, 60 days ago, between 61 and 90 days, sorry, we get 11% of our debt. But previously or before 90 days, 80% of our debt is allocated. So it's quite old, even though it's a small amount. Well, anyway, I should already be reviewing this, right? The idea is that we pay to avoid charges, interest, depends, right? It depends. But at the same time, we want to actually continue cleaning this because we don't want to accumulate, well, this debt that the customer needs to pay in this very moment. So that will be, if you understand the idea, I'm going to request according to this a review, right? And we'll do it for all your customers so you can increase your collections. And we have some ways and some automations, some engines that will send emails automatically by reading this information. How oftenly will you decide it? Okay, because you have internal policies where you don't allow a specific you want to increase your collections, and maybe once a week you want to send an email, once a month send a reminder and things like that. Okay, but check these numbers because we can actually rearrange that for you. Once we understand what we are doing, let's say we are doing invoices as well for the customers, right? As well as for the vendors. They have as well a payment method, a payment term. You remember those concepts, when to pay or how oftenly I need to pay once an invoice is generated and which payment method I should use. Nothing else. So these are the basics, right? Of course, we have others because the idea or other information to review, I mean, we can verify as well all these invoices by group of customers or things like that. But okay, this is just basic. Let's continue with the basics then so we can then just continue working. Then for me, I want to do, for instance, a payment, okay? Let's just do it now. I'm going to show you now what is a payment journal. Very basic, but now let's pay attention to this. The payment journal helps me in Business Central to do payment for vendors, right? And then the idea is that, sorry, I received a message. Okay. The payment journal helps me once again to do payments. Let me delete this line. And what I do is now just look a vendor manually. I'm going to do it manually for now to pay. Okay. So the idea is that, well, let's say that you found an invoice that you want to pay. It's not going to be a problem, or the vendor comes to my offices. So I'm going to ask you, okay, which vendor you are, what's your name, or what's the name of the company, and then select this actual vendor. On the other hand, we need to pay, let's say, with a bank account. Okay, so every time we work with a payment, we as well need to select what will be the preferred, in this case, GL account or bank account. Okay, this is normally what we used to pay. It's not like in this moment, it's like a POS where I'm going to just receive the money and then, well, I need to do it as well in Business Central, all right? Yeah, you receive the payment or do the payment for the vendor in this case, give the money, or we can as well prepare checks. But for now, through the bank account that I'm going to be paying, I'm going to use a savings account, okay? This is basically my offsetting account, meaning that I will be paying with my bank account savings to this fabricant vendor. Now the question is, you already know that we generate multiple invoices, right? The idea is now to go ahead and check to which invoices I'm going to pay now to this vendor, okay? Manually. So I have, and I can check, once I have selected the vendor and the bank, all the invoices that are currently open. When I mention open, we say that they haven't yet been paid or partially paid, but with an open amount. Open amount would be the remaining amount that we haven't paid. So just for as an example, if then I click on set applies to ID for the first line only, this means that, well, I want to pay this red invoice. If you remember, this is an overdue invoice. And here, well, I have the remaining amount, 63, right? And then you can decide how much you want to pay. Let's say that I will be paying just half of it or more or less. So out of the 63, you can as well decide if you, once you select the invoice to pay, you are gonna make a full payment or just a partial payment. And we take a look always at the due date, okay? So we pay attention to that day, especially now that you know that we measure that through the aging reports, and we can see document by document all the detail. So that's fine. I'm just going to pay one single amount, and I'm gonna click on OK. Good. So this is what we call, well, a payment procedure, okay? So the idea for us as well, oh, I forgot to mention something that is important as well. There you go. When the vendor arrives, okay, they are gonna give you an invoice, basically, because I want it exactly as external document number, okay? So every time we generate an invoice like I did before, we are gonna get an internal number, okay, which is the 108285. But when we post it, when we register each transaction, Business Central is going to ask what is the invoice that the invoice number that this vendor is giving you. Because when the vendor arrives to my office, I want this or that invoice to be paid. That could happen. Well, the idea is that you immediately identify by external document number. Just basically that small detail, but very important. Okay, and my journal. If I then check the amount that I will be paying, it calculated the 23. Well, it just provided here in the line, well, from the selection of invoices and amount to be paid, the total for the payment. In this case, only 23. 23, and my journal is balanced, okay? So don't worry about it. The idea here is that we do not always actually work manually, because you might be doing some payments, let's say in your bank, in your website, right? That's super cool because you can then download some files from that website. And look at this, we can as well export, let's say, these payments that I will be doing now, export it, get this information into an Excel file or CVS, just to mention, and you then will be able to upload that information into your bank account, right? So the idea is that we can export this and you don't get, like this complicated process of doing your payments in Business Central and coming back then later to your bank, okay, to do exactly the same, or going to the bank website or things like that. Well, process the payments, right? But well, just mentioning that that exists. Then we just print a test report whenever we do a simple payment. Remember, this is the simple payment. We do not always work like this. We often pay multiple invoices, but let's just go with the basics. Okay, so I created, yes, a payment with my bank account. And then I have all the detail ones here and your currency. And well, basically, what will be the balance from my bank account that is currently the 10,200 payment account USA, and then after this, I will get this additional balance. Okay, so it means it depends what type of bank or credit card you're using, or this will be payment card because I was selecting the bank, right? What will be the balance for that? If it's negative or positive, it depends if you are working with credit or debit cards. Now, once I have just showed this, we just in the end, we register every transaction, remember that. And we call then the registration process, and then this is already successfully posted. So that's basically the idea of what we do. We generate, we purchase, and then we pay. Simple as. So now that we are here together in the webinar, Also, it would be important to mention that we have some automations, right? Important to say. Um, Let me move this. So I don't want to do one by one. In reality, we have 100 invoices in this, or even more in this very moment that we need to pay, right? So we have in Business Central the following functionality: suggest vendor payments or suggest employee vendors payments. What happened in Business Central is that we can generate and create the vendors as I showed you, and then the payment, and then the employees. Your employees could be internal vendors, so to speak. So we generate as well checks or things like that for them. So let's just work any of them. They actually are similar. Let's work and suggest vendor payments. Okay. This suggestion is going to help me, first of all, let's work with find payments and discounts. If any of the vendors are giving me discounts, please notify to me. Let's check this mark, okay? Let's check mark this option. I always want discounts. Then, do you want to use your vendor priority? Do you remember that I told you that we have vendors that are number one? They are more important than anything to me. They give me good prices. They talk with the purchase department about this, right? Strongly recommend that you go, and they should know all our customers. We train our purchasers to do items and to do vendors, right? Most of the time. But well, if they are generating discounts, select it. And if they are generating the vendor priority, selected, and even the vendor priority allows me to do the following. This has some criteria of two variables. Let's say that for this run of payments, I only have $1,000. If that was the case, then why not to apply the vendor priority? I have just like limited funds in this moment. I cannot pay, and this will be most of the time the case. We need to understand that we do not pay. We need to have control of our cash flow. Okay. For that, if you want to understand how we check the cash flow, please check our webinars. They are free. You can request even the videos to our team. And if you need it, I can as well help you understanding or creating more webinars, right? Because my webinars are done because of the customer suggestions. So hopefully, well, I don't want to move a lot from this simple suggestion. Let me just come back. Forget about everything and let's focus on the vendor payments, right? Then we get the balance account. Can remember that we need a balancing account. Let's just select it once again. So in this case, you can select a GL account if you are going to use, for instance, the petty cash, okay? Many of you in retail industry, right? You cannot print the checks in the store. You are within the cashiers, but you have money in your drawer. Mm-hmm. So, well, this could be as well paid through the POS, but financially speaking, this will go anyway to one GL account that is well petty cash. So when we do payments as well, we can just immediately, we know what we are doing. We are accountants, or we are learning this Business Central system. So let's just select one of the GL accounts. That could be. If not, I would select once again my bank account, because I would like to then, let's say, show a print of a check. Why not? All right, but let's just begin with my account. And the bank payment type is as following. If you want to print checks, click computer checks, okay? But let's just do it in a moment in a third exercise for you. So the idea for this process is that I want just to show some of these fields, but what I'm going to do in the end, I will find the discounts, I will find the documents that are open that Business Central is going to bring for me so I can see them. And then Business Central can do the following for you. Summarize per vendor. This means the following. Business Central can suggest for you, and normally does it, that only one payment is generated for each invoice, okay? One by one, relationship to one by one. But sometimes the vendor arrives and, well, we might think that I want to pay all your invoices in one single payment, okay? So consolidate your debt in one and do it and pay it only using one simple transaction. For that, we would then click on summarize per vendor. I don't want to do multiple payments for each invoice that was created. I want to summarize a global payment for all the invoices per vendor. Let's go and review. Oh, I see that somebody else is doing some other payments. Hey, I receive a warning for multiple entries. Okay. What happened here is that somebody else, by the way, was doing payments and might have, well, basically the same entries, okay? So don't worry. The idea is that here in Business Central, we are not going to bring all the other payments that the other person is processing, okay? So don't worry, but here we get some results, okay? For Fabricant, for First Consultants, Graphic Design Institute, I have these total amounts that I need to pay. I can see that I have a lot here, 4,000. Let's take a look because we as well can see which transactions are integrating that $4,667 to pay. Okay, so I just wanted to show, okay, in this moment, plenty of actually I'm gonna be paying all these invoices. Okay, is a total, by the way, just but we can as well review the actual remaining amount to pay, and we still can edit. Okay, if you see, for instance, no, 4,000 is a lot. I know that Business Central understand that I will be reviewing my universe, okay, of payments. And well, just to mention, I don't have enough money to pay all of these entries, okay? So I can still delete. So what I'm saying here is that this suggestion, and I only have now 3 lines, is actually helping me to go and prepare, review Business Central, which payments I'm still missing to do. I cannot see one by one all the vendors. Bring all of that into one single window for me to review it, for me to decide in the end what to pay, and then I will be later printing my checks. So that's why we use this function. We want Business Central to research for us all the open documents according different criteria. All right, your initial amount, I was mentioning 1,000. If I have inputted 1,000 here, that entry of 4,000 that I deleted was never going to be suggested. Okay, so we can specify limits, or if needed, why not to filter one single vendor? Okay, please give me all the entries for Wild Word Importers, okay, which is the vendor number 4,000. If I do this action, right, well, only for that vendor I will be bringing data. And as well, if this vendor have different payment methods, well, I can select any of them, okay? Now, this is just, well, something that this automation is doing. The thing is that I don't have time to check vendor by vendor, and I want to see everything in one single window, okay? So let's just try to do another exercise like this one, so we can get rid of these suggestions. And for me, as well, sometimes, right, we will say, okay, find payment discounts, find my priority. I will only have 1,000 to pay. Let's see if with this money I have some good luck, okay? Skip the exported payments, very important because I export the payments to my website, remember that, okay? And then summarize per vendor and nothing else. Okay, in this very moment, just so I don't pay, of course, all the vendors at the same time, what I'm going to do is just filter my vendor, okay? With this, you as well can filter what will be the total that I can actually pay at most for this vendor, or give me the invoices from specific dates, maybe only the invoices from the last month. Okay, do a date filter, right? That is exactly what I always do. If I want to review the oldest or previous all the invoices from 2022, okay, I can filter all the invoices from this vendor only last month. Let's then filter and then use the suggest vendor payments. But most importantly for me, I want to use a check. So I just need, sorry, I have a question. Okay, and then I'm gonna get all this information filter only for this vendor, correct? That would be the main idea, nothing else. So when I just click on OK, this is going to review once again, and then it has suggested, according to my criteria, the payments. Very good. So once again, you will review which entries were applied or are going to be selected for your application of this 152 cents to pay using your saving bank's account. And then I'm selecting that I want to print a computer check. Good. So in this same journal, we're going to be able to print the checks. Actually, I haven't yet done anything financially speaking. I'm just selecting the invoices to pay. But if I want, then I can select now the print check functionality. That is going to actually, what was the bank? Was the check or savings? Sorry, I forgot. Savings account, sorry. Because when we print, yes, this is going to ask you, okay, I'm going to use the check layout, but of which bank, okay? That will be the savings account. By the way, I have printed before 46 checks, right? So the last check number is already here, and the next check that I print will be the check number 47, okay? Just to mention, and because we don't have all the time, right? But we can test these checks. So if you want to only test, this won't be the real one. You can input now a test in a check in your printer to accommodate the paper, to accommodate that all the fields are printed accordingly in the lines of your check. So instead of you input the information manually, we want to put it in the printer for Business Central, help you with that check, to print the check basically. And as well, you can print the stuff. Which invoices we are paying? I can give you a check with the total amount, but as well, I want the stuff, which is basically which lines or which invoices are paying, because I'm going to give that detail to the vendor. Okay, so more or less that will be the idea. And as well, we can reprint checks. We have different options. I'm not going to test print, but I'm just going to explain well some of these fields. Okay. And additionally, one check per vendor per document number. What is this? Well, sometimes you need to print your checks, yes, right? But it depends. You need to ask to your vendor, hey, maybe I'm going to pay you these 2 or 3 invoices, right? It's not going to be a problem. But what I wanted to specify is that sometimes we don't need to do that. We just can print one single check for multiple invoices. And here you decide if you want one check per vendor, okay? Which I don't often do, to be honest. I normally print one check for the monthly invoices or something like that. Okay, so good. I'm gonna print it. I don't have a printer here to show you all my information, correct? But let me just, at least in my PDF, give you an example. This more or less will be the check, okay? And since I asked that I want the detail, not only the check, I have these two. Let me just give you what is this report about. Below here, we have the check, okay? More or less, this will be then accommodated. This is the stuff with the stuff, okay? If you require the stuff and the check in the same printing, this is what I selected, okay? It's depending on your layout. But here we have the actual check information that will be printed 152 in letters, and then in the amount that has currently asterisks. This is just a test, a check, okay? And then all the invoice information, which invoices we are paying. And let's say that sometimes that will be happening oftenly. We are not only gonna pay 3 invoices, but maybe 20, 30, okay? But Business Central can, and it's going to give you a report, okay? If we have multiple invoices that, well, it's going to be printed so you can deliver that to the vendor. So with the detail and with the check, and well, we, just to mention, right? We accommodate all this information according to your bank check layout, Okay, so they fit into the specific fields, and you can ask us additional information. Some of you might require in this print the signature, right? Or maybe later, one, right? Okay, we can print it, but the signature can be only done one person, right? Later, or maybe just with permission. We have done as well customizations on this with all those different type of requirements, right? Signatures, layouts for different banks, right? And so forth. So that's it. This is just a simple check, nothing complicated. And then I have already printed this. And how do I know that I have printed my check? Well, let's take a look at this check mark. If I apply, no, this is not. Let me see where I left it. Yes, this one is check printed. Okay. If your line, in this case, for my payment for this amount for this vendor has already this check mark, okay, because we can leave it here, okay. I may say, okay, now in this very moment, I need to go and speak with the vendor and deliver the check to him, and that's fine. And at some point later, he will go and cash it, right? The last step for us, very important, is, well, is that check correct? Verify all the information. Your vendor should tell you, should review it immediately, hand it to the vendor. And if not, you can still void the check and reprint it. The only thing is that you will need to use another check number. Bad news, okay? But that happens when we do not, let's say, have a full review, or maybe the vendor requires a correction. I don't know, okay? But we can just void it. If not, we just would just post this journal mentioning that I have paid, financially speaking, and I updated that in Business Central, but as well, I deliver a check. So to finalize this basic process, we are almost finishing this part of this webinar. Okay, what I'm going to do now is just verify exactly the information. Oh, sorry, I need to verify in the bank, not in the vendor number. The bank, as well here in APAR, we need to understand a little bit about banking processes, okay? We do later what we call a reconciliation, okay? So I'm gonna click on saving or the bank account card for the savings account. This is the bank account that I used to pay to that vendor. So first of all, what are my ledger entries? So the ledger entries are already here, okay? And here I see a payment with a note, document number 47. Do you remember what this number is? And then I have the total amount. Every time I do a payment or I receive a payment from a customer, okay, I'm gonna get this transaction posted once again in my bank account. What is the idea of this? Why in AP or AR we are registering this bank, okay, and why we need to check this? Because later, after we do it in Business Central, don't forget, once again, we need to do it in the bank. Either we open now after this, if we handed the check, we need to wait for that vendor to cash that check, and then later we are going to do a process that we named the reconciliation process. So I received all these payments from customers, and I did some others to my vendors to get a total in my bank account balance. That's fine, all right? But then later, the same transactions that you do in Business Central must be in your bank, okay? So later we match them. So we don't want to do things in Business Central saying that I have maybe paid something, but I haven't yet done it in the bank, or the vendor hasn't yet cashed it, okay? So for that, and regarding checks as well, we're gonna as well use what we call the check ledger entries. Just to mention, as well, we need to know the historical information of the checks we deliver to the customers. So, the vendor, sorry. In this case, we have the check number 46 that I already delivered, and recently I created the check number 47 for the amount of 152. Okay, if you want to, once again, investigate why I printed this check, we have this function that is called find entries, where it's going to tell you exactly that information that when you printed and deliver this check to the vendor, why and to which actual information this check is related. I'm investigating now the information for the 47 check. I don't know if it has issues, let's say. Okay, you can check the vendor ledger entry, which is going to tell you how much you have already paid to this vendor, at least in that check. 152. As well, the payment method, well, it should be check, not PayPal, right? And as well, which bank account, which is the savings, and you still have this, well, in accounts payable. Okay, this is the amount that was credited, 152. Oh, I don't want to talk debit credit. We deducted 152 from the accounts payable account. Okay, that's what I'm saying. So this is not anymore a debt that I need to complete. Since I already delivered the check, okay, this was deducted. And here I have GL entries for those of you who are accountants, and detailed vendor ledger entries. We have 5 because we need to check if some additional occurrences were applied, which taxes were applied, and exactly this is the information we are going to be seeing here. Whenever we do our payments, okay, I already applied, well, the initial entry is your invoice, but then you apply payments, okay? This is what we are applying. Application is the actual action of linking your payment against an invoice, okay? Hopefully I'm not confusing you with that. That's quite common in AP as well, so that's why we just mentioned this, but we have people, well, sometimes from different areas. That's why we just explained it. And now I want to explain, just to finish, right? One simple thing that we need to explain if you are not an accountant. We have done a registration in our GL accounts. I show you the GL accounts that I used. But sometimes even when we review the payment, when we review with the vendor the total amount, and even after checking and delivering that check, right? Maybe we need to sometimes solve issues, right? It was not correct. Or maybe the vendor after 6 months, they, for any given reason, they never checked it. They never cashed it, sorry, okay? So for any given reason, okay, we cannot have a check that is incorrect, simple as. So in this case, we are going to do what we call a financial voiding, or, well, after we have done all of this, when I posted, it actually provided information into my general ledger, into the AP, into the bank. So that payment posted information to all the areas, okay? So the check is not correct and I want to void it. This is a financial void, okay? Why? Unapplied and void check, or just void the check only, okay? I want to use the first one, unapplied and void check, meaning that this check was not correct, void it, but as well, open the previous invoice that I linked or applied, mentioning that I paid that particular invoice, but reopen it, okay? So we call that a financial voiding or reversal, more or less. We are not going to delete the transactions, just on apply, so that invoice can be paid later because this check was not correct for any given reason. Unapplied and void check, or we just call it financially voiding, okay? And then for the check that I already gave to the vendor, has the entry status financially voided. Okay, so meaning that we have reopened that AP account that I was mentioning to you. Good. So hopefully that's not difficult, but we are just basically now debiting any AP account. So the vendor still will require this payment later. You know how to use it and so forth. Okay, so that is basically the exercise. And just to mention how the customers, well, will be paying, or how we receive payments. There are the receivable cash receipt journal from our customers, right? We just open, for instance, the general journal, right? This is very similar, but in this case, faster. So once again, for customers like vendors, input to which customer is giving you a payment now, selected here. In this case, is Adaptum Corporation. And similarly to the manual entry that I did with the payment journal, which bank account, but in this case is going to receive money, okay, from my customer. So that's fine. Next step, similarly to the previous journal, is almost the same. Which invoices are still, remember the word open? You remember what is the status of an invoice that is open, meaning that I haven't yet paid. So I can select, and I will select the first invoice, okay? Here's my payment number, and I will only pay some amounts, let's say 100 out of the 324. So I'm receiving $100, dollars. It depends on your currency. And here is the journal, okay? So $100, this Adatum Corporation, I will be receiving this money from this customer, and then I'm gonna need to post it on a bank account, which is my savings account. And then later, I need to deposit that money in my bank account, okay? Especially if it's cash, normally. So I'm going to post it. If it's a transfer as well, you will need to do it on your website or verify that you received the transfer, sorry, okay? So this is it. But just to mention as well, we might use what we call a payment register window, okay? Just for customers. Payment registration, sorry. Okay, very well. So this window, because I like with accounts payable, the idea is not to check vendor by vendor what I need to pay. I need one single area where I can see the entire universe, okay, of all those invoices, or ask to Business Central, can you give me the depth or which transaction are open from whatever filter I do? And here in the customer payment registration, I can see all the invoices that are open. And how am I gonna pay this faster? Well, I'm going to just click on, these are invoices. You look at this. These numbers are telling me this was a sales order, the sales order number 85, number 88, and others, okay? So you can select any of them immediately without having to open the previous journal, which is, for all, like, careful selection. If that's not the case for you, you don't need to really be super careful. Select with this payment made and the amount that you want to pay using this journal, okay? Nothing else. So I'm just applying some specific amount and very fast, okay? What is external document number? Okay, this is the invoice with this number, once again, and another external document number for the other payment, okay? So something like that. Nothing complicated at all, but this window is just with a check, input the amount, and as well post payments or post as loan payments, okay? So, sorry, we can just post all of them at the same time. And for now, only the post payments that I was required, okay? So only two simple payments. And just only to confirm, I can review as well my customers, in this case to verify, and the bank account, important to mention. Well, now I only need to pay 20.53, not the total amount. The balance of the customer after the payment is once again deducted. Similarly, to the vendors, okay? We might get plenty of purchases, but my balance is only the debt. The same applies to the customer card. Last but not least, let me see if we have here the reminders, this database, just to finalize. For all your processes, especially with collections and customers, okay, we have one specific reminder of performing the collection. We are reviewing payments. We are reviewing how to do so, right? To select invoices to pay. But what about if a customer or our customers need to have, like this little push, okay? Push to be able to pay. I have two type of customers, at least in my database, domestic and foreign, which because only of the location, geographically speaking, where they are located, we of course have different type of payments. Local customers should in theory, be paying more oftenly and with more ease. And with foreign customers, well, maybe since we are purchasing, if we are, we need to purchase from Europe, okay, we need to provide, well, as well, if we have customers from other countries, we expect to have more delayed payments. It depends, right? Actually, not specifically geographically speaking is the actual variable, but well, I want to send emails, let's say to the domestic customers. How often do you want to do so? In first place, I want to send an email after the first 1 month of due date calculation, okay? So if an invoice gets due from my customers, I'm going to send an email after 1 month. Then I'm going to send a second email after, sorry, 5 days, and then after 1 month. Okay, the first email of when something is due, 5 days, then 1 month, and then another month. Okay, and just optionally, because I'm going to start sending emails periodically, right? And you tell me what type of email you want, which text, and so forth. And then if you want, we can calculate interests. When your customers are not paying, we can send a charge, which could be fixed, like this additional fee, only 15. After 1 month, if you haven't yet paid, I'm going to charge this, okay? This is optional, right? Or this could be single dynamic, which is a simple interests. If you are not financial, but if we understand interest, simple interest and accumulated interest will be compound interest. The difference is that the compound or accumulated, the way the programmers call it here, this type of a option, is that we can calculate interest over interest over interest, right? The same amount, and that will be then, well, quite a risk, okay? So we have this function. I haven't yet implemented it, but, well, we have it, so why not use it? Only that, okay? And after we specify our terms for each type of group of customers, right? The only thing that I will be doing just to finish this is just to create and send my reminders, okay? And a reminder just to finish our webinars today will look like this. Actually, they are just emails sent to our customers, okay? But our emails are gonna carry the following information, okay? Let's do a preview. With this, we are finishing our webinar today, but this is the email they are gonna receive. Hey, customer credit research. Please, you are receiving this reminder to pay my 2 invoices. Here we have the document number and the total. So here, remit your payment as soon as possible, only that, okay? So these are the reminders. We send them accordingly. These are automated, not manually like I've shown you, right? But select your terms, how often you want to send emails to your customers to increase the collection, and then later, well, we send this type of information with the email functionality, and Business Central does this for you. So thank you very much for your time. We are finishing now our webinar 1 minute later, sorry for that. But then, well, just basically, if you want to contact me, let me just give you my email, because we are now finishing our webinar for now, okay? Thank you very much for your time. If you have questions, just let me know. If you want to tell me, tell me if you want to check on a specific date, okay? Let me just give you here my email. So you can write me if you want one special topic through our webinars. So this was the basic AP/AR explanation that somebody requested me, which functions are used for automations. Thank you very much for your time. For now, I don't see additional questions or anything. So thank you very much, and see you next week. Thank you.